Is to assist with some of the overview of the Cubify program that goes hand in hand with the Cube 3 printer from SOS. Just wanted to give a quick overview of some of the highlights. Any more details or any in-depth training can be requested from us. Just simply visit mysimplifiedoffice.com. You'll see a link to request training, or you can give us a call at 888-914-7476, and we'll be glad to help. This is the main screen for the Cubify program. It does work best if you are connected to the internet, but if not, that's okay as well. You do not need to be connected to a printer in order for this to work. So let's go ahead and get started with a broad overview across the top. And also, all of this information is covered in the manual that is available on the thumb drive that came with your system. Let's get started. The My Shelf icon across the top is the designs that you have uploaded that are available to be printed. If you only see two, these are two that are standard with the system. So typically what happens is someone opens up My Shelf and they want to go to the plus sign. And once they touch the plus sign, then what opens up is a browse menu that allows you to go find any images that are these types of formats. These formats are standard 3D rendering formats. They may be Cube 3, STL, OBJ, 3DS, or PLY. And all that means is these files that you're bringing in have been created to be printed on a 3D printer. So we'll just grab one. We'll grab this Christmas tree ornament that I've done in the past. And what happens is that file is now being grabbed and being brought into Cubify. And depending on the size of your file, depending on your connection, depending on a few things, may take a few minutes. But then once it's in here, it'll give you a preview of what it looks like, and you will see it on My Shelf. Now, one other thing before we go any further is you'll notice there is a filter right here. So if you get, say, 50 to 100 or more files loaded onto your shelf, you can actually go in and click on Filter and change the view so you'll be able to more quickly find files. Okay, so that's My Shelf. The next one is your design feed. So when you click on design feed, provided you are connected to the internet, it will give you a listing of all the files that either people like yourself, other Cube users have uploaded, and they're available to download. As you'll quickly see, there are many files out there that you can work with. Some of these are toys, some of these are geometric shapes. Some of these are just simply little Trinket things. Feel free to play around with. I will go ahead and warn you that a lot of times what happens is you can get inundated very quickly with the amount of files that are available. So just be careful that you don't spend as much time searching as you do actually using the program. The next one is Shop. You can actually click on Shop, and what it'll do is ask you for an email if you want to sign up for the newest 3D printable projects, fashion, collectibles, and more. If you want to sign up, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But what this allows you to do is some of the files that are uploaded, you can actually download. Some of them do cost money. You can download those files and then go back and print those on your Cube. And you can see there's all kinds of little stuff that you can use. Everything from what they call the man cave, camera holders, to robots for your kids, decor, fashion, you name it. And then our last icon is our print icon. And what will happen if you're not connected to a printer is it'll pop up and tell you it failed to discover a printer. No big deal there. Don't worry about it. But we will start digging in a little more depth at this place. So your print icon, if you'll notice what came up is a little wheel over here for your settings. So if you click on settings, it gives you a drop down menu. The first one is your print settings. Your print settings give you 3 different modes. You can go with a custom mode, a standard mode, or a draft mode. When you click on each of these, it gives you just some preset standards that are there. and you have the ability to go in and pick which one works best for you. Now, I'll quickly start and just give you a brief overview of these. The draft mode is your quickest building mode. It's also your lowest resolution. Your least dense parts will be produced here. Your fill pattern is a line mode, and there are no supports and there's no rafts on any of your prints. This mode is good for first drafts of objects. This mode is good for just nothing that you really need a tremendous amount of detail. And it gives you essentially what you're looking at is 0.2 millimeters or your layer thickness. Now that's going to drive the quality of your output. That would be the equivalent of 200 microns in case you were looking at it from a different way. The density is what's inside the piece. And by making the piece hollow, you're actually making it lighter, but you're also using less of the material. The fill pattern will be lines on this mode, and we'll talk about the different methods that you've got to do fill patterns. Using lines is exactly what it said, just straight lines that are used as you fill in the outer walls or any of the internal structures on the piece. Your supports. A support is designed to put a thin line of plastic for any overhangs or any delicate details or anything that maybe is at an angle. That support is there to allow you to have more flexibility in your designs. And there's also great visuals in the owner's manual as well if you're struggling with those. The last one is a raft. A raft is designed if you have small pieces with a small footprint, or you have something that you're concerned with it not sticking to the build plate as well. What a raft is essentially exactly what it says. It's just a lattice piece that goes down on the build plate first, and then your object is built on top of that. The rafts have to be cut away, but they do make part removal real easy. They also are pretty easy to remove. The machine will come with a little set of clippers, and you just simply clip those away. So I wish I had a perfect answer for you on when to use rafts, when not, but it's really up to you guys on how you're going to do that. But for your draft mode, the default setting is to have it in off. You'll notice when I click over to standard mode, your layer stays the same. Your density goes up to a strong setting, so you're going to get a little more dense product that comes out. And your fill pattern is now going to be diamonds. So you're seeing you're getting intersecting layers going through that give you a little bit more strength there. You also still have your supports off and your rafts off. So using less material in the draft mode, a little more in the standard mode, and then you have your custom settings to where you can come in and actually start making changes to this if you'd like. Where you've got your layer setting is still at 0.2 millimeters. Your density, I can now come over and change this from strong to almost solid. And if you look, it gives you a little note here. Choose hollow for short print times and low material use, or almost solid for stronger prints. Again, I personally, when I run this product, I usually use the strong mode. Now, the reason I do that is because we're handling a lot of the pieces probably more than you guys are. I'm also looking for something that has a longer lifespan so that it can be used for trade shows, demonstrations, all that kind of fun stuff. Next, you can come over to the fill pattern. So you have 3 different fill patterns that you can use. Your honeycomb is going to be your strongest. Now, the reason for that is it actually gives you a higher surface area, so you increase your tensile strength of the product. It does that by using a honeycomb-like internal structure, where your diamond pattern is just simply intersecting lines, and then your line mode will go over just in one straight line across. And again, here's your hint. Choose lines for short print times, honeycomb for strength, and diamonds for compromise. So think about honeycombs as the strongest, lines as the weakest, and diamonds as a good compromise. Okay? Now that's your print settings. So your next piece here is you see your offline cube info. And the reason it's saying your offline cube info is because we're not connected to a printer. Now this is where you go in and you actually set what type of machine you're running. So as you come across from there, you look at where it says your EcoCycle cube. Well, this video is designed for the Cube 3, so we need to make sure we set our product for the Cube 3. You do that simply by clicking on the button beside the Cube 3. Now, if you wanted to come down here and click the refresh button, excuse me, not the refresh button, if you come down and you want to click to find a cube manually, you can just simply enter your IP address. Now, here's an important part of this. When your product is set up and delivered by the SOS team, we will ask you, do you want it on your wireless network? When we do that, it has what's called DHCP. That's a fancy way of saying it'll go out and get its own IP address. Once you have that IP address, it can be seen using the main screen of the cube. Once you have that number, this is where you would put that number. So your cube printer and your computer need to be on the same network in order to be able to connect. So if you choose to go that route, this is where we could do that. We have installed over a dozen of these in the public schools just in the last few months, and we have found that by not putting these printers on the wireless network and actually printing to a USB file, we're able to control access to the printer better, and we don't have any security concerns. But we'll show you how to do that in just a moment as well. But that's your print setup function, as we talked about with the cube, offline cube info there. And then your last button there is about, and it'll just tell you what version of the software you're using. Periodically, when you open your software, you may end up being asked to update it. And that's a pretty simple process. Just make sure you're connected to the internet, and it'll do all of a wizard for you to be able to set that up. So now let's go back to My Shelf. And again, My Shelf is where we were able to upload a design. And I'm going to take that upload design and click on it. And when I click on it, it gives me the option to print now. That button only appears when you go in and actually click the print now button. When you go in and click on the actual image you want to print. If you go to print, then what happens is it'll give you a warning that pops up right out of the chute. If there's anything wrong with that model, and what it's talking about is it has not been analyzed to verify that it can be printed. If that pops up, then you should always click OK. What that does is tells you that yes, I will go in and I will verify that that file is okay. And it may take a few minutes. It just depends on the size of the file, depends on the speed of your computer. There's a lot of factors that contribute into that. So now that your model has been verified, what you'll see is a series of instructions that'll pop up for your model here. And what's happening is you've got your various menus across the top, gives you a great overview of what they are. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to hit a few of these so we make sure that we understand it. Okay? So the first thing you do is it'll pop up and it'll say, please select your default cube type. And we are on a cube 3, so we're going to make sure we click a cube 3. And then you'll see your model here. Your printers all come with the ability to print in 2 different colors. Now the thing with colors is you need to tell the printer what color is in the machine. So what you'll need to do is take a look at your machine. The color wheel on the left is referring to the color on the left. The color wheel on the right is referring to the color wheel on the right. That's your cartridges. So when you click on that, the first thing that pops up is it asks you, is it PLA plastic or ABS? If you're not sure, look on the cartridge. The default type that came with your machine is PLA. Now the difference in the 2 plastics, PLA is a vegetable-based plastic, a little bit easier to work with, a little bit lower melting point, not quite as rugged as the other types of plastic, so a little more brittle, but definitely easier to work with. Your ABS plastic is more like the plastic we're used to. It's a little tougher. It's a synthetic-based plastic, and definitely something that holds up a little bit more. Can I tell you which one works better? I've had success with both, so it's really just more of a personal preference. But make sure you check the default plastic that's in your machine. Most of what you have out there when it comes with the product delivered from SOS, it'll be PLA. I know in the machine I'm working with, one color is black. So once I select PLA and black, I just simply hit set. And what it'll do is it'll change over here and tell me that that's black. Then I come over to my next color. It is PLA as well. And the color it has is actually the neon green. Here we go. Neon green. Definitely a bright color. So we'll select that. Now, if you notice, once I changed over my colors, my model went from a white to a black. So if I wanted to come over here and, if I wanted to come over here and change my model to a green, all I'm simply doing is holding down my mouse button over to green and then going to my model and putting my dropper to it. So once again, click on your color, you'll see a dropper come over. Make sure you select your model and let go and it turns green. So now you're good to go. Any of your changes that you do here, you can interchangeably go back and change that from one color to the next. So pretty easy to work with. You will find some models, build models, that will have two colors in there. Those are from a design perspective. They have to be designed in order to have two separate images that are coming together, two separate pieces that are coming together in order to do a multiple color model. We'll be glad to show you that in a little more in-depth and a personal way. I think right now let's just keep it on a higher level here. Also, if you'll notice, what I can do now is go into my settings. Very similar to what we looked at earlier. I've got the ability to come in here and make specific changes just to that model. So if you look now, I've actually got more options. So by clicking on my little gear button here, print settings, now I can go a little deeper into my custom settings and I can change it to a 0.7 millimeter, which is a 70 micron. That gives you much higher quality, a little bit longer to print, but it definitely gives you a higher quality. Same thing can be done with your density, your fill pattern, your supports. Now I can turn those off and on. Now let me talk about those. The support pattern, the supports that I can put in place, it's always great to have a two-color machine because you can make your actual print in one color, your supports in the other color. So it makes it nice and easy to work with. If you wanted to come in and do your rafts, again, that's your piece on the bottom, then I can come in and tell it to turn on the rafts and do it in a neon green. Now here's why it's neat to do them in two different colors. It makes it a whole lot easier to see, and it makes it even easier to remove because now you can see the rafts. They aren't the same color as your build file. So it makes it a little bit easier. So all of these settings that I've done now apply just to this model. They are not going to be my standard settings for every time I go to build something, but they're just for this model. And again, you'll see very similar that we've got the ability to go in and make those changes. Now, I can zoom in on the image if I wanted to. I can zoom back out on the image. This here is an Autoplace, and what that does is automatically place the build in the center of the build plate. This area here is called your build plate. These markers here mark the upper and outer limits of your build area. So within this build area, I can place as many files that will fit on this plate. I have the ability to stand these files up, move them around, whatever I need to do, I have that ability to do it. So I can also go in here and change my view. So if I wanted to see what it looks like from the top, I can do that. From the side, I can do that. From the front, and then I like to leave it on the 3D view so I can actually see what's going on. Now your print progress button only works if I'm connected to a printer and it's doing exactly what it says. It's showing you the progress that it's making with the printing. Okay? So pretty straightforward when it comes to the settings here. Now, how do we go ahead and print? You've got two options. You can save it to your shelf, which again is up here. It's my shelf. That will make it to where you put it back on your shelf and you're ready to print. That comes in handy if you are connected directly to a printer or if you're going to send it out to be printed, or maybe you're going to email SOS and ask us to print it for you. It makes it easy to do there. The way we are recommending for our customers is to click on this button of Save to File. Now, by clicking on Save to File, what I'm actually doing is I'm telling my printer that, hey, what I'm interested in doing is I'm interested in creating this file, but I want to save it to a thumb drive. And when I go to save it to a thumb drive, first thing that happens is we're going in and generating a print file. Now, here's the difference. The files that you're pulling into this software are actually 3D rendered files. They may be STLs, SketchUp files, SolidWorks files, Inventor files, any of those type of file formats. Those are pulled in to the Cubify software. Then what the Cubify software does is it creates what's called a print file. And the print file is a file that can only be printed on a Cube printer. So what happens there is all the settings, all the pieces, all the colors, everything, all that information that you've laid out on that print file is now being incorporated into printing a Cube print file. Essentially what that is, think about your 3D rendered file being cut into slices, into individual slices, so that that information can be translated over to the Cube 3 printer, which then can take it and actually generate your model. Now you just simply find where you want to save your file. If you have a thumb drive, it'll pop up here. You can change the name of it, whatever you like. It doesn't really matter, up to you. I have a folder here named Cube Files, and you'll notice what it'll have is the name of your file. I'm just going to leave it as Christmas tree, and then it creates a Cube 3, so it'll be Christmas tree.cube3 file, and just simply hit save, and it'll tell you that yes, it was saved correctly, and you're good to go. Now, if that file is created and saved on a thumb drive, then that thumb drive can then be taken over to the Cube 3, and you'll be able to print from there. That is the safest and most secure way to print. But that's how you create a file, bring a file in, and save it to where it would be ready to be printed. The last thing I would go over is just a couple little settings. When you select your model, then you will see a blue box come around it. You can rotate that model, you can scale that model, you can move that model, or you can remove that model. So any of these that give you a way to come in and freely move something, whatever you want it there. You can move it to an exact point on X or Y axis. So if you wanted to move something 2 inches to the left, you could, 1 inch to the left, whatever it may be. I personally find the free move to work a little bit better. It's a little bit easier to see and easier to understand. When you're through with that, you just simply click move, or you can just click your X and it'll close out of there. The next one is rotate. I can actually come in and rotate my model, whether I want it to go up on its side like this, or if I want it to go back. I can also come in and with the XYZ, I can actually rotate it by a certain number of degrees. So I could put in 20 degrees, rotate it on its Z-axis and hit rotate. And then what it does is actually rotates it on the Z-axis. So hopefully you can see that. And that's how you would rotate it. And then your scale is exactly what it says. If you wanted to free scale something, you just move it up. And it'll move up small increments, or you could come in and you can put a percentage of what you would like to be able to scale something. Not something that you use that often. Most of the time your files are rendered the way you want them in your rendering program, so you don't have to come in and do a lot of these adjustments when you're in the Cube software. But that's it. That's some of your basic settings there. Feel free to rewind and check it out again. But we do appreciate it. And again, if there's anything we can do to help, please contact the member of your SOS team or visit mysimplifiedoffice.com and contact us by calling 888-914-7476. We appreciate your business, appreciate your investment, and look forward to continuing to work with you in the exciting world of 3D.